Hi, and welcome everybody to this week's show. I'm your host, Jack Canfield, and my guest this week is Dr. Jason Williams, who's the author of The Immunotherapy Revolution, the best new hope for saving cancer patients' lives. He's also the winner of the 2018 Vince Lombardi Leaders for a Cure Award. Jason's a pioneer and one of the leading experts in intratumoral immunotherapy, which we're going to find out about that, which is injecting immunotherapy drugs directly into cancer tumors. And he's also the founder of the Williams Cancer Institute. He's also a board-certified radiologist and founder of the Cancer Care AI, a telemedicine-based AI company that provides analysis and recommendations to enhance a patient's existing cancer care. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm excited about having you. So what was the motivation for writing your book, The Immunotherapy Revolution?
Yeah, so, one of the things was that, I would talk to patients and give them recommendations, but, it was like every day over and over the same thing. And I realized that the patients weren't getting some basic information that would be the difference between their care potentially working or not. And I realized that this was just a problem across the board. So I wanted something that could reach more people than just who I could talk to on a daily basis.
Now, let's just take a second and talk about what is immunotherapy. I mean, most people hear about radiation, they hear about chemotherapy. How does immunotherapy work?
Yeah, immunotherapy really kind of started coming on the scene around 2014, and it's really a different concept than other cancer treatments. Radiation, obviously people know that damages the DNA, and you're basically, trying to destroy the cancer cells that way. Chemotherapies also, interfere with DNA and other parts of the functioning of the cell and are essentially poisons. Whereas immunotherapy, the concept behind it was to sort of unleash the person's own immune system against the cancer. And so one of the things that's different is that some of these drugs actually bind to your own immune cells and not necessarily the cancer, to allow the immune system to see it. The cancer is really good at hiding itself, and that's how it obviously it needs to survive, and it's going to try to disguise itself as a normal part of your body, and uses those things that your body normally has to protect itself from, an errant immune system, and uses that to its advantage so it can survive. And this just kind of takes away the mask of the cancer so it can be seen.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I talked to you several years ago,
yes,
and I know at that time you were putting hot and cold needles into the cancer cell. And
right.
Talk about, is that the only way you do immunotherapy, or is there immunotherapy without that? And just talk about that a little bit, if you would.
Yeah. And so, that was kind of the original technique that I was doing, where, we would freeze tumors or heat up the tumors by putting a needle into it. And one of the things we saw is that killing tumors in that way sometimes allowed the immune system to see it. You have these dead pieces of tumor and there's an inflammatory reaction, and the immune system then sometimes sees the cancer and then begins attacking it elsewhere. And so we were looking to try to enhance that by then injecting other immunotherapy agents with it to boost that response. And now we still use that technique, but now the medications are getting really good, where we can duplicate a lot of what the ablation does, but with medications. So we have drugs that will kill the tumor partially in a way that's very immune stimulating, and then we combine it with these other, immune enhancing drugs, and that allows us the advantage of, we can treat tumors that normally we could not treat. Say, for example, a tumor's in a location that you couldn't freeze it or heat it up by ablation, then you didn't have a good option to treat it. Well, now with these, other medications, we can treat it. And there's not very many cancers that we can't reach with needles. So this is it's a big advantage. And before, when we were treating probably 20% of cancers, now we're probably over 90% of cancers.
Wow. It's amazing how fast this is evolving.
Yes.
I love it. Now, let's say someone gets cancer, and then usually they're pretty freaked out about it. What advice would you give to a person who was just diagnosed with cancer?
Yeah. So I think, one thing, obviously, they need to kind of remain calm, but then they need to make sure that they do their own research. I think as a lot of times people blindly follow what their doctor says, and it doesn't matter whether it's me or another doctor. When a doctor tells you something, you should check into it. I think, as Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. And so, don't just assume that what your doctor's telling you is the best option. There is so much going on in cancer treatment now that no doctor can keep up with it all. And I think a good doctor, is willing to work with the patients. Patients bring me ideas all the time. I say, let's look into it and see, is this something we should be doing? And, I would say, gosh, I learn a lot just from the patients because, it's a huge wealth of research, particularly patients who are big researchers bring you a lot of nice ideas, a lot of scientific articles and that. And you want to be sort of a partner with the patient, but certainly, don't just put your trust completely in whatever the doctor says. I think that you need to do your own research, and certainly I think any patient will come up with a few new things that their doctor had not told them about.
Yeah, good point. Talk to us about Cancer Care AI.
Yeah, so when initially I thought that this book was going to solve a lot of issues, I was like, well, it's going to provide a lot of information to the patients. And then I realized that this is a complicated subject. Patients are, when they have cancer, it's very difficult. It's very difficult sometimes for them to take time to research. And, I realized one day I had a problem with my computer. And I talked to somebody and they're like, okay, here, I'm going to tell you how to do it. And I'm like, I don't want somebody to tell me how to do it. I want somebody to come and fix it for me. just do it and give it to me working. And then I realized, what? That's what I think I need to do for the patients. I think a lot of the patients, we're giving them the information, but we're kind of saying, hey, here's the information, but sort of fix it on your own. And so then I thought, okay, if we can come up with a system where we can analyze the patient's data, their DNA data, RNA, all the things that we can analyze in the cancer, their microbiome, so the bacteria in their intestines, and come up with a plan, but then something that can work with their current therapy. Says they could be seeing an oncologist at another cancer center and getting immunotherapy, and we're going to enhance that care, but we're going to deliver it straight to them. They'll get a box with the supplements, with the off-label medications that may boost their response. And to be able to have this, I take the patients and I analyze and look at their their genetics, all their other things, and sort of come up with it's like profiling the cancer of what you figure out should work. But there's a lot to that. And there's a lot that as a human, you won't see everything. And so that's why we decided, let's base this telemedicine around an AI so that all the data goes in, and the AI, using a lot of principles initially from my book, will give the recommendations, but it's continuously learning. So as patients are getting treated and we're getting results, then the AI learns and improves and sees things that we would never see, or you just very complicated. And so it's kind of merging those together, particularly now with COVID, telemedicine is becoming very big. And this, again, is not going to replace completely other doctors, other cancer centers. It's to work with them and to make the best out of that patient's care.
Very good. You mentioned the word biome in your answer to that question, and I keep seeing that coming up more and more in different literature I read. For people who aren't aware of that, talk about the effect of the biome on overall health and cancer treatment and prevention.
Yeah. It's, I tell you, it's extremely important. So, so we have what we call the microbiome. These are, of course, they're bacteria that are all over your body, but in specific, we mean sort of the ones that are in the intestines. Those are the ones that really play a bigger impact as compared to the skin or in the lungs or other areas, but they all play a role. And we're realizing that a lot of diseases are actually a result of, bad bacteria in the intestines or bad groups. Like you may have some bacteria that are correct, but maybe have too much of one type or not enough of another, or not enough broad types of bacteria. And so they're finding more that certainly, it makes sense that a lot of diseases like Crohn's, which is an inflammation in the colon that's from the immune system attacking it, ulcerative colitis, which is another inflammation in the colon, which is a little less understood. But even they're finding things like lupus, Parkinson's disease. I mean, a lot of other conditions may have some root in the microbiome. And the other thing is that for patients, for people in their risk for cancer, a lot of it may be related to a bad microbiome. And unfortunately, in today's society, we're really doing we're really insulting the microbiome. There's, obviously a lot of antibacterial soaps, antibacterial things in toothpaste, preservatives in food, artificial sweeteners. All of these things have an impact on the microbiome and kill bacteria and tend to kill and reduce the diversity, which leads to a weakened immune system and can lead certainly to an increased risk of cancer and in other situations, other diseases as well. And so that's why there's a big focus now on that. But, probiotics aren't necessarily the complete answer. You might want to supplement a little bit. The bigger answer seems to be what we call prebiotics, and having a lot of fiber, having a lot of prebiotics are sort of microfiber that feed your bacteria. And so, one of the things to say is not only what bacteria you have in your intestines, but what you feed them is important too. Because if you don't feed them the right things, they don't produce the right substances.
Just say a little bit more about fiber.
Yeah, sure. So of course, one of the things that they've seen is that there's, increased diversity of the microbiome is very important for health. And people that have high fiber diets, so, a lot of plant-based diets, those are people that tend to have more diversity. Now, a lot of times people can't really follow the diets very well. And so they have these sort of microfibers that are called prebiotics. A lot of them are derived from various plants as well. Some of them are smaller pieces. Some of them are even like pieces of sugar strung together. And these are things that you can take in powders or pills, and they will actually enhance feeding the bacteria in your intestines, which can lead to more diverse bacteria.
Very cool. I'm just curious, you've been doing this work for a long time. Have you discovered that there are many common beliefs about cancer that aren't true, that people carry?
Well, I think, of course, one thing for cancer and cancer treatment is that, people really have the idea that if it's FDA approved, then it works. And if it's not, then it doesn't. And so they have to realize that a lot of these drugs, spend years in development, and sometimes they're approved for certain things, but they can be beneficial for others, what we call off-label use. And so, like, for example, the immunotherapy drugs that everybody thinks are new, that have just recently come out, those were drugs that actually been studied in humans for 20, 25 years now. So they're not new. They just take a long time to get through the process. But I have a lot of patients who, when immunotherapy first got approved, it was approved for melanoma. But we have patients with lung cancers and breast cancers, and we were using it in those patients. And a lot of the oncologists would tell the patient, oh, that's not going to work because it's not FDA approved. Well, that's not necessarily the case, but a lot of these now it is approved, but when we were using them before, it wasn't. So don't think that FDA approval means it works. There's not a magic wand that happens when the FDA says it's approved and now it works, but yesterday it didn't. And so I think that's probably one of the more important things to understand in cancer care. And that goes back to a lot of the patient doing their own research as well.
Cool. So where can people learn more about you, your book, and your work?
Yeah, so all of it they can find on our website, which is www.williamscancerinstitute.com. We do have also the website for the book, which is Immunotherapyrevolution.com. But on our broad website, they can find pretty much everything they need from there. Very good.
Very good. Well, I love you as a person. Your dedication to helping people is just incredible and impressive. And the work you've done, the research you've done is profound. And I just want to recommend your book. I've read it really twice. I've read it the first time just to get familiar with it, and then I went back and read all my underlines, which were a lot. I have several friends who have cancer. I'm going to make sure they get a copy, and also some things in there that I think some people can read and realize that some of these things you can do to help prevent getting it in the first place. So thanks for your work. Thanks for keeping up. And it's really fun. I've known you now for about 2 or 3 years, and how much just in that short period of time your work has evolved, and the whole immunotherapy revolution has evolved as well. So keep on the good work. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. It's good seeing you.
Hey, you too, man. So if you're someone out there, you know someone who has cancer, or you're concerned about it in general, make sure you get a copy of the Immunotherapy Revolution. You know where to go now, and go to the WilliamsCancerInstitute.com and go to the immunotherapyrevolution.com, get a copy of the book, share it with people. And we'll see you all next week. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy.